Is it 18? I think so. That's high. That's life, baby. This is Pimp Kabbalah Chronicles, the Pimp Kabbalah Crash Course. Whatever you want to consider, that's what it is. All right. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been thinking about what the topic should be today. Um, well, I don't, I don't really know, but I'm not going to be reading a lot. This fucking app is going to be baller for me. I'm just going to sit here and listen to this bitch. I remember when I was in 5th grade, the teacher said, you can learn in one of 3 ways. Now, I'm sure there are more ways to do it, but she said you can read by reading, or you can learn by reading, by hearing, or by doing. And I think probably we do the best. There are other ways, though. Probably, I think the best way to learn is to teach, because you're going to get questions. It's going to ensure that you know the material really well. But just on those 3, on doing, on hearing, and on reading, seeing, listening, and doing. I think probably the best is doing. Um, but reading is good. But hearing, I feel, hearing while reading is like really important. '18 in Judaism. So we're gonna learn about this shit. Okay, so the Hebrew word for life is chai, which is a numerical value of 18. Consequently, a custom has arisen in Jewish circles to give donations and monetary gifts in multiples of 18 as an expression for blessing for long life. In Judaism, in the Talmud Pirkei Avot 525, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tiameh gives the age of 18 as the appropriate age to get married. Ben Shmona Esra Lechuppah at 18 years old to the chuppah marriage canopy. See, coming of age, age of majority. The Amida prayer is known as Shemona Esrei. The Amida prayer is also known as Shemona Esrei as the Amida prayer is also known Shemona Esrei as Shemona Esrei, which means 18 because it has 18 blessings. That's incorrect. It has 19 blessings. Really? Yeah. Does it? Yeah. Are you sure? Motherfucker, you could take a gun to the back of my head, like that motherfucker in Ho Chi Minh City, and that's how serious I know this one. It was originally 18, but then one was added. Dog, this shit is the worst. We still haven't gone through that footwork thing, but dog, just look it up. Chat. "19 Blessings." Berkat Haminim. Fuck yeah. Alright. So I know that one. Okay, what are we learning today, Rabbi? Dog, I don't know. Some rabbits be like, yeah, how them hemorrhoids kid. I'd be like, calm down, woman. We're doing okay. I probably should have some more fiber, but So far, so good. When I don't think about them, they're good. Do they cause pain? They can. Definitely discomfort. Let's learn about what um my man Maimonides said about. I remember he's a doctor, as am I. What the fuck is this shit? Dog, quit with this bullshit. What does Rambam say about hemorrhoids? I love how it thinks I said Rambo. It's a joke. They drew first blood because, well, hemorrhoids bleed. No, Rambam, not Rambo. Rambam, not Rambo. The Rambam, Maimonides, actually did write a medically about hemorrhoids. I fucking know that he did. That's like one of the things that you could Ho Chi Minh City me on. Um, actually did write medically about hemorrhoids in the medical writings and reflected in Mishnah Torah. His core view was hemorrhoids are often caused by poor digestion, constipation, and straining. Diet and lifestyle come before medicine or surgery. Soft stools, regular bowel habits, and moderation are key. I commonly summarize Rambam-style teaching, paraphrase, not a direct quote. Most illnesses, including hemorrhoids, come from improper eating and excess. I probably agree with that. His recommended approach: high fiber foods, adequate hydration, physical movement, avoiding force during bowel movements, surgery only as a last resort. Rambam basically says you cause this by how you live, not fix the cause. Um, yeah, okay, so I knew he talked about it. Really? Yeah. I don't remember everything, but I remember that. All right. Now what? What are we learning today? I had a bunch of shit that was um on the agenda from yesterday. Shit sucks. All right. Um so we did Baruch Spinoza yesterday, which is like I thought about that a lot. Like when I was going to bed, I'm like, man, we got to get this motherfucker excommunicated. Cherem. On Cherem. Um, Dog. Um, dude, but we've got to learn about Kabbalah. Something about Kabbalah every fucking day till I die. Oh, dude, there was one. Hold on, did it not fucking save? It was. No. I can find it though. I know where it was. It was on Kabbalah. Kabbalah. And then where was it? It was under Jewish mysticism, and somewhere under Jewish mysticism, Hermetic Kabbalah. What is this? That's what we're going to learn today. Hermetic Kabbalah. What is it? I don't know. I mean, I think I know. It's a Western esoteric tradition. Okay, here we go.
From Hebrew, Kabbalah, reception, accounting, is a Western esoteric tradition involving mysticism and the occult. It is the underlying philosophy and framework for magical societies such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, has inspired esoteric Christian organizations such as the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, is a key element within the Thelemic orders, and is important to mystical religious societies such as the Builders of the Adytum and the Fellowship of the Rosy Cross. Hermetic Kabbalah arose from Christian Kabbalah, which itself was derived from Jewish Kabbalah, during the European Renaissance, becoming variously esoteric Christian, non-Christian, or anti-Christian across its different schools in the modern era. It draws on a great many influences, most notably, Kabbalah, Western astrology, alchemy, pagan religions, especially Egyptian and Greco-Roman, Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, and the symbolism of the tarot. Hermetic Kabbalah differs from the Jewish form in being a more syncretic system. However, it shares many concepts with Jewish Kabbalah. Teachings. Conception of divinity. A primary concern of Hermetic Kabbalah is the nature of divinity, its conception of which is quite markedly different from that presented in monotheistic religions. In particular, there is not the strict separation between divinity and humankind which is seen in classical monotheism. Hermetic Kabbalah adheres to the Neoplatonic conception that the manifest universe, of which material creation is a part, arose as a series of emanations from the Godhead. These emanations arise out of three preliminary states that are considered to precede manifestation. The first is a state of complete nullity, known as An, nothing. The second state, considered a concentration of An, is An Sof, without limit, infinite. The third state, caused by a movement of An Sof, is An Sof or limitless light, and it is from this initial brilliance that the first emanation of creation originates. Sephirah. The emanations of creation arising from An Sof are 10 in number, and are called Sephirah, singular Sephirah, enumeration. These are conceptualized somewhat differently in Hermetic Kabbalah to the way they are in Jewish Kabbalah. From An Sof crystallizes Kether, the first Sephirah of the Hermetic Kabbalistic tree of life. From Kether emanate the rest of the Sephirah in turn. This Kether: 1. Chakna, 2. Bina, 3. Dot, Cheese, 4. Jevira, 5. Tiferet, 6. Netzach, 7. Hod, 8. Yesod, 9. Malkah, 10. Dot is not assigned a number as it is considered part of Bina or hidden Sephirah. Each Sephirah is considered to be an emanation of the divine energy, often described as the divine light, whichever flows from the unmanifest, through Kether into manifestation. This flow of light is indicated by the lightning flash shown on diagrams of the Sephirotic tree which passes through each Sephirah in turn according to their enumerations. Each Sephirah is a nexus of divine energy, and each has a number of attributions. These attributions enable the Kabbalist to form a comprehension of each particular Sephirah's characteristics. This manner of applying many attributions to each Sephirah is an exemplar of the diverse nature of Hermetic Kabbalah. For example, the Sephirah Log has the attributions of glory, perfect intelligence, the aids of the tarot deck, the planet Mercury, the Egyptian god Thoth, the archangel Michael, the Roman god Mercury, and the alchemical element Mercury. The general principle involved is that the Kabbalist will meditate on all these attributions and by this means acquire an understanding of the character of the Sephirah, including all its correspondences. Tarot and the Tree of Life. Hermetic Kabbalists see the cards of the tarot as keys to the Tree of Life. The 22 cards, including the 21 trumps plus the Fool or Zero card, are often called the major arcana or greater mysteries and are seen as corresponding to the 22 Hebrew letters and the 22 paths of the tree. The Ace to 10 in each sub correspond to the 10 Sephiroth in the 4 Kabbalistic worlds, and the 16 court cards relate to the classical elements in the 4 worlds. While the Sephiroth describe the nature of divinity, the paths between them describe ways of knowing the divine. Orders of angels. According to the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn's interpretation of the Kabbalah, there are 10 archangels, each commanding one of the choirs of angels and corresponding to one of the Sephiroth.
We don't
Similar to the Jewish
necessarily
angelic
do that.
hierarchy. History. Hermetic views of Kabbalah origins. The practice of using alphabetic letters to represent numbers developed in the Greek city of Miletus, and is thus known as the Milesian system. Early examples include paste graffiti dating to the 6th century BCE. Aristotle wrote that the Pythagorean tradition, founded in the 6th century BCE by Pythagoras of Samos, practiced isosophy, the Greek predecessor of Jewish gematria. Pythagoras was a contemporary of the philosophers Anaximander, Anaximenes, and the historian Hecataeus, all of whom lived in Miletus, across the sea from Samos. The Milesian system was in common use by the reign of Alexander the Great, 336-323 BCE, and was adopted by other cultures during the subsequent Hellenistic period. It was officially adopted in Egypt during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, 284-246 BCE. In Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine, 19th century theosophist Helena Blavatsky wrote that Hermeticism and Kabbalah ultimately both taught the same secret teachings as Neoplatonism and Hindu philosophy. In the mid-20th century, Gershom Scholin hypothesized that medieval Kabbalah had its roots in an earlier Jewish version of Gnosticism. However, contemporary scholarship of Jewish mysticism has largely rejected this idea. Moshe Gadol instead has posited a historical continuity of development from early Jewish mysticism. Modern Hermetics, however, see Kabbalah as originating in classical Greece based on Indo-European cultural roots, and only later adopted by Jewish mystics. Renaissance occultism. Jewish Kabbalah was absorbed into the Hermetic tradition at least as early as the 15th century when Giovanni Pico della Mirandola promoted a syncretic worldview combining Platonism, Neoplatonism, Aristotelianism, Hermeticism, and Kabbalah. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, 1486-1535, a German magician, occult writer, theologian, astrologer, and alchemist, wrote the influential 3 books of occult philosophy, incorporating Kabbalah in its theory and practice of Western magic. It contributed strongly to the Renaissance view of ritual magic's relationship with Christianity. Pico's Hermetic syncretism was further developed by Athanasius Kircher, a Jesuit priest, Hermeticist and polymath, who wrote extensively on the subject in 1652, bringing further elements such as Orphism and Egyptian mythology to the mix. 19th century magical revival. Post-Enlightenment Romanticism encouraged societal interest in occultism, of which Hermetic Kabbalistic writing was a feature. Francis Barrett's The Magus, 1801, Handbook of Ceremonial Magic gained little notice until it influenced the French magical enthusiast Eliphas Levi, 1810-1875. Levi presented Kabbalism as synonymous with both white and black magic. Levi's innovations included attributing the Hebrew letters to the tarot cards, thus formulating a link between Western magic and Jewish esotericism, which has remained fundamental ever since in Western magic. Levi had a deep impact on the magic of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Hermetic Kabbalah was developed extensively by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Within the Golden Dawn, the fusing of Kabbalistic principles such as the 10 Sephiroth with Greek and Egyptian deities was made more cohesive and was extended to encompass other systems such as the Enochian system of angelic magic of Chandi and certain Eastern, particularly Hindu and Buddhist concepts, all within the structure of the Masonic or Rosicrucian style esoteric order. Aleister Crowley passed through the Golden Dawn before going on to form his own magical orders. Crowley's book Liber 777 is a good illustration of the wider Hermetic approach. It is a set of tables of correspondences relating various parts of ceremonial magic and Eastern and Western religion to the 32 numbers representing the 10 spheres, Sephiroth, plus the 22 paths of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. The pantheistic nature of Hermetic Kabbalists is plainly evident here, as one may simply check the table to see that cheese, mercy, corresponds to Jupiter, Isis, the color blue, on the Queen scale, Poseidon, Brahma, and Amethyst. Aftermath of the Golden Dawn. Many of the Golden Dawn's rituals were published by Crowley, some altered in various ways to align them with his own Nubian magical approach. Israel Rigardi eventually compiled the more traditional forms of these rituals and published them in book form. Dion Fortune, an initiated Alpha and Omega, an offshoot of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, who went on to found the Fraternity of the Inner Light, wrote the Mystical Kabbalah, considered by her biographers to be one of the best general introductions to modern Hermetic Kabbalah. A. and Ordo Templi Orientis. After the dissolution of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Crowley integrated Hermetic Kabbalah into his new religious philosophy. Thelema, Crowley's works, such as Magic, 777, and the Book of Thoth emphasize the Tree of Life and Sephirah, utilizing Kabbalistic principles to explore human consciousness and spiritual growth. Thelema's development continued through organizations like the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, and the AA, which further embedded Hermetic Kabbalah into their rituals and teachings, perpetuating its influence within modern esoteric practices. English Kabbalah. There are various systems of English gematria, sometimes referred to as English Kabbalah, that are related to Hermetic Kabbalah. These systems interpret the letters of the Roman script or English alphabet via an assigned set of numeric values. Liber Trigrammton. In 1904, Aleister Crowley wrote out the text of the foundational document of his worldview, known as Liber Legis, the Book of the Law. In this text was the injunction found in verse 255, "Thou shalt obtain the order and value of the English alphabet. Thou shalt find new symbols to attribute them unto," which was understood by Crowley as referring to an English Kabbalah yet to be developed or revealed. In one of the holy books of Thelema written by Aleister Crowley in 1907, called Liber Trigrammton, some figure 27 being the book of the mutations of the Tau with the yin and the yang, are 27 three-line diagrams known as trigrams, which are composed of a solid line for the yang, a broken line for the yin, and a point for the Tau. By attributing 26 Roman script letters to the trigrams of this work, Crowley felt that he had fulfilled the injunction to attain the order and value of the English alphabet, as noted in his old comment to the Book of the Law. However, he also wrote that the attribution in Liber Trigrammton is good theoretically, but no Kabbalah of merit has risen therefrom. Due to its cryptic nature, Liber Trigrammton has been the subject of various interpretations by Thelemic scholars and practitioners. It is often analyzed in conjunction with other works by Crowley in the broader context of Thelemic teachings. Its trigrams are sometimes correlated with the I Ching and other systems of divination and symbolism. Trigrammton Kabbalah. The most developed interpretation, known as Trigrammton Kabbalah (TQ), was first published by R. Leo Gillis in 1996, and subsequently released as the Book of Mutations in 2002. This system is based on one of the holy books of Thelema written by Aleister Crowley in 1907, called Liber Trigrammton, Figure 27 being the book of the mutations of the Tau with the yin and the yang. Liber Trigrammton, Aka Liber 27, was called by Crowley the ultimate foundation of the highest theoretical Kabbalah. Correspondences are created with some of the major forms of divination such as the I Ching, tarot and runes, as well as Greek and Hebrew alphabets, the Tree of Life, Western and Vedic astrology, magic squares, and the Platonic solids. A primary feature of this Kabbalah is a new understanding of the cube of space and its 26 components of edges, faces, and vertices, which equal the number of letters in the English alphabet. English Kabbalah. English Kabbalah, EQ, is a Kabbalah supported by a system of arithmancy created by James Lees in 1976. It assigns numerical values to the English alphabet to interpret esoteric texts, particularly the Book of the Law. Initially overlooked, the system gained recognition through Cav Thompson's publications, which detailed its methods and applications. EQ provides an alternative to traditional Hebrew and Hermetic Kabbalah, emphasizing the linguistic and numerical properties of English. Various Thelemic practitioners use English Kabbalah in rituals and textual analysis, exploring its unique insights into Crowley's work. Ongoing research continues to expand its applications within modern occult practices, demonstrating its adaptability and relevance. This system offers a distinct perspective on esoteric interpretation, contributing to a deeper understanding of Thelemic texts and practices. Long Milo Duquette has praised the system for its innovative approach. See also.
Alright, well, since today's the 18th day, maybe we learn about Gematria today as well, and I'd like to... So we can just fly through this shit so much faster. Please end the thing first, huh? Please end TTS first. How long is this bitch? No one knows.
In numerology, gematria, mitrai semicolon Hebrew, or gematria, plural or gematria, borrowed via Aramaic from Koine Greek, is the practice of assigning a numerical value to a name, word, or phrase by reading it as a number, or sometimes by using an alphanumeric cipher. The letters of the alphabets involved have standard numerical values, but a word can yield several values if the cipher is used. According to Aristotle, 384-322 BCE, Isophy, based on the Greek numerals developed in the city of Miletus in Anatolia, was part of the Pythagoreanism, which originated in the 6th century BCE. The first evidence of use of Hebrew letters as numbers dates to 78 BCE. Gematria is still used in Jewish culture. Similar systems have been used in other languages and cultures, derived from or inspired by either Greek Isophy or Hebrew Gematria, and include Arabic Abjad numerals and English Gematria. The most common form of Hebrew Gematria is used in the Talmud and Midrashas in Jerusalem Talmud, Genesis Rabbah 95:3, and elaborately in rabbinic literature. It involves reading words and sentences as numbers and assigning numerical instead of phonetic values to each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. When read as numbers, they can be compared and contrasted with other words or phrases. Cf. the Hebrew proverb, Niknash Yain Yso, lit, wine entered, secret went out, I in vino veritas. The geometric value of wine is 70, equals 10, equals 10, equals 50, and this is also the geometric value of secret, equals 60, equals 6, equals 4. Cf. Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin 38a. Gematria sums can involve single words or lengthy strings of calculations. A short example of Hebrew numerology that uses Gematria is the word chai, a lie, which is composed of 2 letters that, using the assignments in the Mizpah table shown below, add up to 18. This has made 18 a lucky number among Jews. In early Jewish sources, the term can also refer to other forms of calculation or letter manipulation. For example, Abbash. Etymology. Classical scholars agree that the Hebrew word gematria derives from the Greek geometry, though some scholars believe it derives from grammatia and knowledge of writing. It is likely that both Greek words had an influence on the formation of the Hebrew word. Some hold it to derive from the order of the Greek alphabet, gamma being the 3rd letter of the Greek alphabet, gematria. The word has been extant in English since at least the 17th century from translations of works by Giovanni Pico della Mirandola. It is largely used in Jewish texts, notably those associated with the Kabbalah. Neither the concept nor the term appears in the Hebrew Bible itself. History. The The first documented use of gematria is from an Assyrian inscription dating to the 8th century BCE, commissioned by Sargon II. In this inscription, Sargon II states, "The king built the wall of Korsov 16,283 cubits long to correspond with the numerical value of his name." The practice of using alphabetic letters to represent numbers developed in the Greek city of Miletus, and is thus known as the Milesian system. Early examples include base graffiti dating to the 6th century BCE. Aristotle wrote that the Pythagorean tradition, founded in the 6th century BCE by Pythagoras of Samos, practiced isosophy, the Greek predecessor of gematria. Pythagoras was a contemporary of the philosophers Anaximander, Anaximenes, and the historian Hecataeus, all of whom lived in Miletus, across the sea from Samos. The Milesian system was in common use by the reign of Alexander the Great, 336-323 BCE, and was adopted by other cultures during the subsequent Hellenistic period. It was officially adopted in Egypt during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, 284-246 BCE. In early biblical texts, numbers were written out in full using Hebrew number words. The first evidence of the use of Hebrew letters as numerals appears during the late Hellenistic period. In 78 BCE, scholars have identified gematria in the Hebrew Bible, the canon of which was fixed during the Hasmonean dynasty, c. 140 BCE to 37 BCE, though some scholars argue it was not fixed until the 2nd century CE or even later. The Hasmonean king of Judea, Alexander Jannaeus, died 76 BCE, had coins inscribed in Aramaic with the Phoenician alphabet, marking the 20th and 25th years of his reign using the letters K and KE, and some old Mishnaic texts may preserve very early usage of this number system, but no surviving written documents exist, and some scholars believe these texts were passed down orally and during the early stages before the Bar Kokhba rebellion were never written. Gematria is not known to be found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, a vast body of texts from 100 BCE 100 CE, or in any of the documents found from the Bar Kokhba revolt circa 150 CE. According to Proclus in his commentary on the Timaeus of Plato written in the 5th century, the author Theodorus Asaius from a century earlier interpreted the word soul, based on gematria and an inspection of the graphical aspects of the letters that make up the word. According to Proclus, Theodorus learned these methods from the writings of Numenius of Epamia and Emilius. Proclus rejects these methods by appealing to the arguments against them put forth by the Neoplatonic philosopher Iamblichus. The first argument was that some letters have the same numerical value but opposite meaning. His second argument was that the form of letters changes over the years, and so their graphical qualities cannot hold any deeper meaning. Finally, he puts forth the third argument that when one uses all sorts of methods as addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and even ratios, the infinite ways in which these can be combined allow virtually any number to be produced to suit any purpose. Some scholars propose that at least 2 cases of gematria appear in the New Testament according to one theory. The reference to the miraculous catch of 153 fish in John 21:11 is an application of gematria derived from the name of the spring called Eklam in Ezekiel 47 hours and 10 minutes. The appearance of this gematria in John 21:11 has been connected to one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, namely 4Q252, which also implies the same gematria of 153 derived from Ezekiel 47 to state that Noah arrived at Mount Ararat on the 153rd day after the beginning of the flood. Some historians see gematria behind the reference to the number of the name of the beast in Revelation as 666, which corresponds to the numerical value of the Hebrew transliteration of the Greek name Neron Caesar, referring to the 1st century Roman emperor who persecuted the early Christians. Another possible influence on the use of 666 in Revelation goes back to reference to Solomon's intake of 666 talents of gold in 1 Kings 10:14. Gematria makes several appearances in various Christian and Jewish texts written in the 1st centuries of the Common Era. One appearance of gematria in the early Christian period is in the Epistle of Barnabas 9:6-7, which dates to sometime between 70 and 132 CE. There, the 318 servants of Abraham in Genesis 14:14 is used to indicate that Abraham looked forward to the coming of Jesus, as the numerical value of some of the letters in the Greek name for Jesus and the T representing a symbol for the cross also equal 318. Another example is a Christian interpolation in the Sibylline oracles, where the symbolic significance of the value of 888, equal to the numerical value of Jesus, the Latinized rendering of the Greek version of Jesus' name, is asserted. Irenaeus also heavily criticized the interpretation of letters by the Gnostic Marcus, because of their association with Gnosticism and the criticisms of Irenaeus and Hippolytus of Rome and Epiphanius of Salamis. This form of interpretation never became popular in Christianity, though it does appear in at least some texts. Another 2 examples can be found in 3 Baruch, a text that may have either been composed by a Jew or a Christian sometime between the 1st and 3rd centuries. In the first example, a snake is stated to consume a cubit of ocean every day, but is unable to ever finish consuming it, because the oceans are also refilled by 360 rivers. The number 360 is given because the numerical value of the Greek word for snake, when transliterated to Hebrew, is 360. In a second example, the number of giants stated to have died during the deluge is 409,000. The Greek word for deluge has a numerical value of 409 when transliterated in Hebrew characters, thus leading the author of 3 Baruch to use it for the number of perished giants. Gematria is often used in rabbinic literature. One example is that the numerical value of the Satan in Hebrew is 364, and so it was said that the Satan had authority to prosecute Israel for 364 days before his reign ended on the Day of Atonement, an idea which appears in Yoma 20 and Pesachah 7a. Yoma 20 states, Rami Barama said the numerological value of the letters that constitute the word Ha-Satan is 364 Ha, has a value of 5 sin, has a value of 300 Tet, has a value of 9, and Nun has a value of 50. 364 days of the solar year, which is 365 days long. Satan has license to prosecute. Genesis 14:14 states that Abraham took 318 of his servants to help him rescue some of his kinsmen, which was taken in Pesachah 70b to be a reference to Eliezer, whose name has a numerical value of 318. The total value of the letters of the Islamic Basmala, i.e. the phrase Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, according to the standard Abjadi system of numerology, is 786. This number has therefore acquired a significance in folk Islam and Near Eastern folk magic, and also appears in many instances of pop culture, such as its appearance in the 2006 song 786 All is War by the band Fundamental. A recommendation of reciting the Basmala 786 times in sequence is recorded in Al-Buni. S. Berman, 2006, reports that a contemporary spiritual healer from Syria recommends the recitation of the Basmala 786 times over a cup of water, which is then to be ingested as medicine. The use of gematria is still pervasive in many parts of Asia and Africa. Methods of Hebrew gematria. Standard encoding. In standard gematria, Mr. Haggerty, each letter is given a numerical value between 1 and 400, as shown in the following table. In Mr. Gattel, the 5 final letters are given their own values, ranging from 500 to 900. It is possible that this well-known cipher was used to conceal other more hidden ciphers in Jewish texts. For instance, a scribe may discuss a sum using the standard gematria cipher, but may intend the sum to be checked with a different secret cipher. A mathematical formula for finding a letter's corresponding number in Mr. Gattel is, where x is the position of the letter in the language letters index, regular order of letters, and the floor and modulo functions are used. Vowels. The value of the Hebrew vowels is not usually counted, but some lesser known methods include the vowels as well. The most common vowel values are as follows. A less common alternative value, based on the digit sum, is given in parentheses. Sometimes, the names of the vowels are spelled out and their gematria is calculated using standard methods. Other methods. There are many different methods used to calculate the numerical value for the individual Hebrew Aramaic words, phrases, or whole sentences. Gematria is the 29th of 32 hermeneutical rules countenanced by the rabbis of the Talmud for valid Agadic interpretation of the Torah. More advanced methods are usually used for the most significant biblical verses, prayers, names of God, etc. These methods include related transformations. Within the wider topic of gematria are included the various alphabet transformations, where one letter is substituted by another based on a logical scheme. Most of the above-mentioned methods and ciphers are listed by Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Some authors provide lists of as many as 231 various replacement ciphers, related to the 231 mystical gates of the Sefer Yetzirah. Dozens of other far more advanced methods are used in Kabbalistic literature, without any particular names. In Miss Oxford 1822, one article lists 75 different forms of gematria. Some known methods are recursive in nature and are reminiscent of graph theory or make a lot of use of combinatorics. Rabbi Elazar Rothschild, born c. 1176, died 1238, often used multiplication, instead of addition, for the above-mentioned methods. For example, spelling out the letters of a word and then multiplying the squares of each letter value in the resulting string produces very large numbers, in orders of trillions. The spelling process can be applied recursively, until a certain pattern, e.g., all the letters of the word Talmud is found. The gematria of the resulting string is then calculated. The same author also used the sums of all possible unique letter combinations, which add up to the value of a given letter. For example, the letter A, which has the standard value of 5, can be produced by combining 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, display style 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, comma 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, display style 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3 plus 1 plus 1, display style 3 plus 1 plus 1, 4 plus 1, display style 4 plus 1, 2 plus 2 plus 1, display style 2 plus 2 plus 1, or 2 plus 3, display style 2 plus 3, which adds up to 30, display style 30. Sometimes combinations of repeating letters are not allowed, e.g., 2 plus 3, display style 2 plus 3 is valid, but 3 plus 1 plus 1, display style 3 plus 1 plus 1 is not. The original letter itself can also be viewed as a valid combination. Variant spellings of some letters can be used to produce sets of different numbers, which can be added up or analyzed separately. Many various complex formal systems and recursive algorithms, based on graph-like structural analysis of the letter names and their relations to each other, modular arithmetic, pattern search, and other highly advanced techniques, are found in the Sefer HaMalchut by Rabbi David Hall Levi of the Draw Valley, a Spanish Moroccan Kabbalist of the 15th-16th century. Rabbi David Hall Levi's methods also consider the numerical values and other properties of the vowels. Kabbalistic astrology uses some specific methods to determine the astrological influences on a particular person. According to one method, the gematria of the person's name is added to the gematria of his or her mother's name. The result is then divided by 7 and 12. The remainder signify a particular planet and zodiac sign. Significance. In Jewish tradition, gematria is often used to find hidden meanings within text, especially in the Talmud. These meanings are typically derived from significant numbers in Judaism, or from the equivalence of one word to another. In the latter case, such situations are used to connect the meaning and events associated with one word to those of the other. For example, Hasidim used the fact that Amalek, and the Hebrew word for Tav, have the same value as evidence that Amalek was a symbol of Tav within the Jewish people. Transliterated Hebrew. Historically, Hermetic and esoteric groups in the UK and France of the 19th and 20th centuries used a transliterated Hebrew cipher with the Latin alphabet. In particular, the transliterated cipher was taught to members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. In 1887, Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, who was one of the order's founders, published the transliterated cipher in the Kabbalah unveiled in the Mathers table. Letters among which it is signifies not 1, but 1,000. As a former member of the Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley used the transliterated cipher extensively in his writings for his two magical orders, the AA and Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO. Many other occult authors belonging to various esoteric groups have either mentioned the cipher or published it in their books, including Paul Foster Case of the Builders of the Adytum, BOTA. Use in non-Semitic languages. Greek. According to Aristotle, 384-322 BCE, Isosophy, an early Milesian system using the Greek alphabet, was part of the Pythagorean tradition, which originated in the 6th century BCE. Plato, c. 427-347 BCE, offers a discussion in the Cratylus, involving a view of words and names as referring, more or less accurately, to the essential nature of a person or object, and that this view may have influenced and is central to isosophy. A sample of graffiti at Pompeii, destroyed under volcanic ash in 79 CE, reads, "I love the girl whose name is 5 mu epsilon, 545. Dot." Other examples of use in Greek come primarily from the Christian literature. Davies and Ellison state that, unlike rabbinic sources, isosophy is always explicitly stated as being used. Latin. During the Renaissance, systems of gematria were devised for the classical Latin alphabet. There were a number of variations of these which were popular in Europe. In 1525, Christoph Rudolph included a classical Latin gematria in his work. Nimble and beautiful calculation via the artful rules of algebra are so commonly called cos. At the beginning of the Apocalypsis in Apocalypsin, 1532, the German monk Michael Stiefel, also known as Stiefel, describes the natural order and trigonal number alphabets, claiming to have invented the latter. He used the trigonal alphabet to interpret the prophecy in the biblical book of Revelation, and predicted the world would end at 8 a.m. on October 19, 1533. The official Lutheran reaction to Stiefel's prophecy shows that this type of activity was not welcome. Belief in the power of numbers was unacceptable in Reformed circles, and gematria was not part of the Reformation agenda. An analog of the Greek system of isosophy using the Latin alphabet appeared in 1583, in the works of the French poet Etienne Tiburon. This cipher and variations of it were published or referred to in the major work of Italian Pietro Bongo Numerorum Mysteria, and a 1651 work by Georg Philipp Harshofer, and by Athanasius Kircher in 1665, and in a 1683 volume of Kabbalologia by Johann Henning, where it was simply referred to as the 1683 alphabet. It was mentioned in the work of Johann Christoph Emmeling, the European Helicon or Muse Mountain, in 1704, and it was also called the Alphabetum Kabbalisticum Bulgarian Diverli Bud Galante Melt by Christian Friedrich Hunold in 1707. It was used by Leo Tolstoy in his 1865 work War and Peace to identify Napoleon with the number of the beast. English. English Kabbalah refers to several different systems of mysticism related to Hermetic Kabbalah that interpret the letters of the English alphabet via an assigned set of numerological significances. The first system of English gematria was used by the poet John Skelton in 1523 in his poem The Garland of Laurel. The Agrippa Code was used with English and Latin. It was defined by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa in 1532. In his work De Culta Philosopha, Agrippa based his system on the order of the classical Latin alphabet using a rank valuation as in isopsephy, appending the 4 additional letters in use at the time after C, including J, 600, and U, 700, which were still considered letter variants. Agrippa was the mentor of English magician John Dee, who makes reference to the Agrippa Code in Theorem 16 of his 1564 book, known as Hieroglyphica. Although Aleister Crowley, as a former adept of the Golden Dawn, used a transliterated approach to gematria in his works, since Crowley's death a number of people have proposed numerical correspondences for English gematria in order to achieve a deeper understanding of Crowley's The Book of the Law, 1904. One such system, the English Kabbalah, was created by English magician James Lees on November 26, 1976. The founding of Lee's magical order in 1974 and his creation of EQ are chronicled in All This and a book by Kath Thompson. See also.
That's baller. Is it? Boring as fuck. Anyway. Now what? Let's do Baal Shem Tov. So one thing that significantly changed my life was a Family Guy episode where Meg voiced at the time by Mila Kunis has this wild reaction God, I know that they say it in an episode because I was always like, what the fuck was that? You're telling me that it's not available? Somebody's got to clip this. Somebody has got to have clipped this. Dog. Meg gets like straight up possessed. I don't see it though. Anyway, there's an episode where Meg screams out Baal Shem Tov, and it was wild. Anyway, that always stuck out in my mind, and as a name. And I remember asking my friends about it, and they're like, I'm like, why did they just have that scene? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I don't know why she just was like possessed to say Baal Shem Tov. Like, and I was in Chabad many years ago, and it was like the second day after I had arrived at the shul. And, and I got two people confused. Two of the rabbis, they're confused. Long story. One of them's from LA. The other's from Israel. And I was davening next to this one rabbi, and I said to him, I was reading the Wikipedia page of the Baal Shem Tov yesterday, and it really inspired me. And this rabbi looks at me from Israel and says, "You genius." And I'll never forget that. That was like the first thing that I recall he said to me. And
Israel Ben Eliezer, C 1700 1760.
It was this
known as the Baal
page.
Shem Tov, BLMTV, TF, Hebrew, or BSHT, was a Jewish mystic and healer regarded as the founder of Hasidic Judaism. The Baal Shem Tov is a master of the good name, that is, one able to work miracles using a secret name of God. Other sources explain his sobriquet as arising from a reputation of being a saintly or superior Baal Shem, miracle worker. Hence, he was given the nickname Baal Shem Tov, the good Baal Shem. Biographical information about the Baal Shem Tov comes from contemporary documents from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the legends about his life and behavior collected in the praise of the Besh, Shiv'i HaBesh. A central tenet of the teachings associated with the Baal Shem Tov is Tevuka, a direct connection with the divine, which is infused in every human activity and every waking hour. Prayers of supreme importance, along with the mystical significance of Hebrew letters and words. Biography. Birth. Israel was born about 1700 to a certain Eliezer, according to Shiv'i HaBesh. Eliezer lived at the edge of Wallachia. He and his wife were elderly. Once upon a time, they were captured and taken prisoner to a faraway land. Eliezer found his wife, who thankfully still lived, and the Besh was born when each was near 100 years old. According to other early Hasidic legends, he was born in Akka, probably Akapi, Chernobyl Oblast, although Shiv'i HaBesh mentions him residing there only as an adolescent, and only in a parenthetical insertion by the 1815 printer. Later legend names his mother Sarah. Romanian-Israeli historian Moshe Adel claims that Baal Shem Tov was born in the Principality of Moldavia, in what is today Bukovina. He says that Wallachia from the Shiv'i HaBesh does not mean the Principality of Wallachia, but Moldavia, also known as Moldo-Wallachia, Romanian, Moldovladia. Adel concludes that there is no solid evidence that he was born in Akapi. The founder of Hasidism was born to a poor family that inhabited an unknown place on the Romanian part of the border with the Kingdom of Poland. There is no next to evidence whatsoever that the Besh was born in Akapi. Career. Solomon Isaac Halpern, 1727 or 1729-1791, records two anecdotes about his father Jacob, 1698-1738, the Rabbi of Savannahs, meeting the renowned Israel Baal Shem, master of divine knowledge that are non-legendary, as Halpern was not a Hasid, although he was only between 9 and 11 when his father died. The Baal Shem Tov performed a dream quest and discovered Jacob was the reincarnation of Isaac Alfasi, a famous Maghribi scholar. These meetings necessarily occurred before 1738. Polish census records show that a certain holy man lived in Metzidas from 1740 to 1760, which was presumably Israel. In 1740, the census describes a Kabbalist. In 1742 and 1758 a Baal Shem, and in 1760 a Baal Shem doctor, the last being perhaps testimony to Israel's thaumaturgical practice. Meir Tiamin writes in Meridinium, 1782, I saw a letter from the Holy Land, written by the pious Rabbi Gershon to his brother-in-law, the renowned master of the good name, Rabbi Israel, may he live. From the honorific may he live, it seems that this book was composed in Israel's lifetime. This is the only time the Baal Shem Tov was mentioned by name before his death. Beyond these scant sources, a few letters on theological subjects, attributed to Israel, were printed posthumously. Their authenticity is debated by scholars. Nothing more can be gleaned of his biography from contemporary sources. Death. He is last seen in the census as a resident of Metzidas in 1760. By 1763 another resided in the house, and Hasidic legends give various dates around 1760.
I remember, this is what I said. No, I misstated. I said to this rabbi, I was reading about the Baal Shem Tov yesterday, and maybe it also said I was reading about Shneur Zalman of Ladi. But I said at the time that he founded Hasidism at like age 30 years old, something like that. Would that be right? No, 30. Yeah. Maybe, I forget. Maybe it was really early in the morning. It was pre-chakras. It was like right, maybe, I don't know. This rabbi and I were the only two in the shul though. And maybe it was after chakras, but it wasn't. It was, you're not supposed to talk before chakras, but maybe it was the appropriate time. And I said, I read that he founded Hasidism at age 30, and if he could found Hasidism at age 30, and that's how old I am now, back then. That would be right. Maybe it's not too late for me to become, and we'll say maybe the words are a little different, to help lead, something like that. The words aren't exactly that way, but for our teachings today. And that's when he said, "You genius." And I was like, baller. Because this motherfucker looked exactly like Moshe Rabbeinu. I'll never forget, this rabbi and I took a picture together a few weeks later, And my friend, I sent him this picture, and he said, I was like, this. I said the person's name, and he was like, that looks like the real Moses. I was like, I know.
Posthumously printed letters. Several letters attributed to Israel or his associates have been printed since his death, and scholars debate their authenticity. According to a letter supposedly from Besh's
Man,
brother-in-law
I've
to
got to
Israel
take
himself
a
is interpreted
shit,
that Moses in the letter was a
allegedly.
practitioner of prophecy, being able to see a messianic figure arrive in Jerusalem despite living far from the city. The brother-in-law claims to have inquired into the figure and discovered the Besh's vision to be true. This would support the belief that the Besh could see the souls of men, divining the messianic quality of him despite only seeing him through a vision. Rossman also describes another letter the brother-in-law wrote, which claims that the Besh could travel to heaven and commune with God. This view is derived from a series of titles given to the Besh, attributing various religious achievements to him such as understanding the mysteries of God. Legacy. Israel ben Eliezer left no books. A Kabbalistic commentary on Psalm 107, ascribed to him, Sidonir, 1804. Sefer Mi Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, is not genuine. The only record of his teachings is in his utterances as recorded in the works of his disciples. Most are found in the works of Jacob Joseph of Palmoi. Since Hasidism immediately after its founder's death was divided into various parties, each claiming for itself the authority of Besh, utmost caution is necessary for judging the authenticity of utterances ascribed to Besh. Jacob Joseph quotes over 800 teachings of Israel in his books. Jacob Joseph sometimes says he is unsure whether a quote is the exact words of the Baal Shem Tov, implying that other quotes are verbatim. The later developments of Hasidism are unintelligible without consideration of Besh's reputed opinions on man's proper relation with the universe. True worship of God consists of cleaving to and unifying with God. He is supposed to have said, the ideal of man is to be a
I'm remembering this story like it's foggy to me, but I remember knowing that the year that Baal Shem Tov, was it Baal Shem Tov or Rabbi Schneerman Zalman of Lidl? Schneur Zalman. Lighty. Um, 1775. So it's Schneur Zalman of Lighty. That's what it was. So I was saying to him, I was reading about the founders of Chesed, as I said, I was reading about the Baal Shem Tov, and I said something like Schneur Zalman of Lighty, something like this, was born in 1745, and he founded Chabad in 1775, and that means he founded Chabad at age 30. And if he could found Chabad at age 30, then I certainly could help be a leader at age 30. And along those lines, it's not exact, but, and that's when this rabbi said to me, you genius, you genius. And I was like, okay.
Revelation himself, clearly to recognize himself as a manifestation of God. Mysticism, then, is not the Kabbalah, which everyone may learn. That sense of true oneness is usually as strange, unintelligible, and incomprehensible to mankind as dancing to a dove. But someone capable of this feeling is endowed with a genuine intuition, and the perception of such a man is prophecy according to the degree of his insight. From this it results that the ideal man may lay claim to authority equal, in a certain sense, to the authority of the prophets. This focus on oneness and personal revelation help earn his mystical interpretation of Judaism the title of panentheism. The doctrine's second and more important result is that man forms a connecting link between the Creator and creation through his oneness with God. Thus, slightly modifying the Bible verse Habakkuk 2, Israel is quoted, the righteous can vivify.
Motherfucker, I cannot believe that was 10 years ago. What it was.
By his faith, his followers enlarged upon this idea and consistently deduced from it the source of divine mercy, blessings, and life. Therefore, one may partake of God's mercy if one loves him. On the opposite side of the coin, Israel is said to have warned his followers that Amalek is still alive today. Every time you experience a worry or doubt about how God is running the world, that's Amalek launching an attack against your soul. We must wipe Amalek out of our hearts whenever and wherever he attacks so that we can serve God with complete joy. It may be said of Hasidism that there is no other Jewish sect in which the founder is as crucial as his doctrines. Israel himself is still the real center for the Hasidim. His teachings have almost sunk into oblivion. As Solomon Schechter, Studies in Judaism, page 4 observes 2, the Hasidim Baal, Shem was, the incarnation of a Thirian, his whole life the revelation of a system. Jacob and Weinstock contend that the Besh was essentially the right person in the right place at the right time. 18th century Podolia was ideal for fostering a sea change in Jewish thinking. It had been depopulated a generation earlier due to the pogroms of the Khmelnytsky uprising. The Ottoman occupation of Podolia occurred within Israel's lifetime, and along with it, the influence within this frontier territory of Sabbatai Zevi and his latter-day spiritual descendants such as Chaim Malik and Jacob Frank. Once the magnates of Poland and Lithuania regained control of Podolia, it underwent an economic boom. The magnates valued the financial benefits the Jews provided and encouraged Jewish resettlement to help protect the frontier from future invasions. Thus, the Jewish community itself was essentially starting over. Notable students. The Baal Shem Tov directly imparted his teachings to his students, some of whom founded dynasties. Legends. Hasidim soon filled volumes with fantastical legends about his life. These volumes, especially Shiviyai Havesh, 1815, are presumed to contain a small historical kernel, but scholars debate which passages are credible. A thief once tried to break into a house, the owner of which, crying out, frightened the thief away. The same thief soon afterward broke into the house of a very strong man, who, on seeing him enter, kept quite still. When the thief had come near enough, the man caught him and put him in prison, thus depriving him of all opportunity to do further harm. Israel held a firm conviction that God had entrusted him with a special mission to spread his doctrines. He believed that he had heavenly visions revealing this mission to him. For him, every intuition was a revelation, and divine messages were daily occurrences. An example of the power of his spiritual vision is found at the beginning of his grandson's work, Digel, where he writes that his grandfather wrote to Abraham Gershon of Gibeah, who lived in Ottoman Palestine, asking him why he was not there that particular Shabbat. Misattributed images. A portrait by John Singleton Copley, often mistaken for the Baal Shem Tov, is a portrait of Hayim Samuel Jacob Falk, who was known as the Baal Shem of London. Another popular image is in fact Elijah Gutmacher, the Graditzer Rebbe. In popular culture. In 2019, the American funk quartet The Fearless Flyers released an instrumental single named The Baal Shem Tov in honor of the rabbi. Singer Mattisyahu, whose song Baal Shem Tov on the album Spark Seeker is named after him. He was portrayed by Loser Tversky in the Ukrainian film Dovbash, 2023. The Israeli author Yachi Brandis' novel Adele explores the life of Baal Shem Tov from the perspective of his daughter, Adele, Yuval. Gallery. See also. References. See also. See also.
The Baal Shem Tov's family tree is like a big part of my life. I have two Orthodox rabbis. That's the only kind of rabbis are. That I recognize. We can get into all kinds of other shit, but I have taken a family tree and like worked it so how I could work myself into this family. And that's how many times have you worked yourself into somebody's fucking family tree? That's what I want to know. Like meaning like I was gonna find one of these motherfuckers' granddaughters or whatever and be like, hey bitch, let me get in there.
The following charts illustrate the family of Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic Judaism. The first chart shows the Baal Shem Tov's close family, his closest relatives, by blood and by marriage. This is meant to clarify the various family relations mentioned in the Baal Shem Tov's biography. The second chart shows his descendants to the fourth generation. The Baal Shem Tov did not found the Hasidic dynasty proper, as his immediate successor was his student, Rabbi Doppler of Mezerich, and not any of his descendants. Even so, the descendants of the Baal Shem Tov were revered, as recorded in the early Hasidic work Necker Born, first published in 1880 from handwritten manuscripts. At the time of the Baal Shem Tov's death, Rabbi Pinchas of Kords and Rabbi Jacob Joseph of Polinoy, two of the Baal Shem Tov's closest disciples, reported to the Hasidim that the Baal Shem Tov had designated his grandson Reb Baruch as his successor and instructed Reb Pinchas to take responsibility to carry out those wishes. Reb Baruch was only 7 at the time of his grandfather's death, and was raised in Reb Pinchas' home, where the Baal Shem Tov's other close disciples and other leaders of the Hasidic movement visited regularly to check on his progress and assist him.
I mean, I have writings of mine with a fucking family tree and how I worked myself into this bitch.
Assist with his preparation to assume his grandfather's mantle. Eventually, his grandson Baruch of Nespaz established his Hasidic court and was the first Hasidic Rebbe. Other descendants became allied by marriage to other powerful Hasidic dynasties, e.g. Chernobyl, Karlin Stalin, producing many dynasties, including some of the dynasties still active today, e.g. Spur, Biznitz. Thus, the family of the Baal Shem Tov can be considered a sort of Hasidic dynasty in its own right, and is often treated as such in reference works on Hasidic dynasties where it is sometimes referred to as the Nespaz dynasty. This term is sometimes used specifically for the dynasty of Baruch of Nespaz, see Nespaz, Hasidic dynasty, or for an unrelated dynasty from Nespaz, see Abcha, Hasidic dynasty. Close family of the Baal Shem Tov.
Yeah, this is what it was. I had this bitch, this fucking family tree, and I worked myself into this bitch.
Descendants of the Baal Shem Tov. References. Bibliography.
Really? Yeah. If somebody sent that to you, what would you think? Either this person was bonkers or they were going to change some shit. If somebody sent that to you right now, I would think that this person was very motivated in one way or another. I don't know if I would believe them, but I would think that they were. It's whatever they had was an interesting thought. So hold on a second. We're gonna read some of the Baal Shem Tov's stories. I like telling stories. Oh fuck! There's a shitload of these bitches. What if we just? Oh fuck! Fuck! This is the worst. All right. What would you think that Baal Shem Tov would think of you? I would be like, dog, you fucking worked yourself into my family tree in your writings to rabbis. Knock yourself out, kid. If you can fucking convince one of my female offspring to get married, then go for it. I mean, what would you do if like 500, no, like 300 years from now, somebody was like, "Yo, dog, here is your family tree. I want to get in there." I'd be like, "Go for it," but you got to find them and you've got to convince them. And if they don't like you, tough shit. All right, the opening legend of Shivei Habesht tells that his father Eleazar was seized during an attack, carried from his home in Wallachia, and sold as a slave to a prince. On account of his wisdom, he found favor with the prince, who gave him to the king to be his minister. During the expedition undertaken by the king, when other counsel failed and all were disheartened, Eleazar's advice was accepted, and the result was a successful battle of decisive importance. Eleazar was made a general and afterward prime minister, and the king gave him the viceroy's daughter in marriage. But mindful in it of his duty as a Jew, as he was already married, he married the princess only in name. After being questioned for a long time as to his strange conduct, he confessed he was a Jew to the princess, who loaded him with costly presents and helped him escape to his country. On the way, the prophet Elijah is said to have appeared to Eleazar and said, "On account of thy piety and steadfast, thou wilt have a son who will lighten the eyes of all Israel, and Israel shall be his name, because in him shall be fulfilled the verse Isaiah 49:3. Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified." Eleazar and his wife Sarah reached old age childless and had given up all hope of ever having a child, but when they were nearly 100 years old, the promised son Israel was born, which is like, I don't know. I mean, like, are we really believing that? Okay. In 1703, Israel became an orphan and was adopted by the Jewish community of Thuste. Thuste. After completing his studies at the local heder, he often wandered into the village's fields and forests. In 1710, he finished cheder and became an assistant to a melamed, heder teacher. In 1711, at the age of 13 or 14, he joined the Aburat Machain Yisrael, a group of secret tzaddikim led by Adam Balsham. Adam introduced him to Kabbalah. Sometime in 1712, Israel became Shamash, sexton of a local synagogue. Synagogue. That's Gabbai. He was hired as a teacher's assistant. Have you ever been a Gabbai? Yeah, pretty. Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Um, well, wouldn't you know? In some communities, it's just kind of default. If you're there all the time and you're assisting with the shul duties, then like calling people up at high holidays and setting up shul, and perhaps even like ensuring everything is proper for shul to take place. And arguably, he was hired as a teacher's assistant in the headers of a small village they passed through. He later related that he took great pleasure in accompanying the children to and from school, using this opportunity to recite prayers with them and tell them Torah stories. Dovber of Mezerich would later say, "If only we kissed the Torah scroll with the same love that my master, the Baal Shem Tov, kissed the children when he took them to Heder as a teacher's assistant." He had visions in which the prophet Ahijah and Shilonite would appear. In 1716, Israel married, but soon after his wife died, and he traveled throughout eastern Galicia. After serving for a time as a helper in various small communities of West Ukraine, he settled in as a Malamed in Thuste. Israel became the leader of this movement at age of 18, caring for the Jewish poor. The group of Tzaddikim encouraged Jews to move to agrarian lifestyles as alternatives to the chronic poverty of Jews. Continuing this policy, they decided they needed to look after the educational needs of the children living in small farm communities. If a suitable teacher could not be sourced, they would provide one. So Israel became a teacher's assistant. He later commented, "The most joyous time in my life was teaching the small children how to say Moda Ani, Shema Yisrael, and Kamat Aleph." He was chosen by people conducting suits against each other to act as an arbitrator and mediator. His services were brought into frequent requisition because the Jews had their own civil courts in Poland. He is said to have made such an impression on Ephraim of Brody that the latter promised Israel his daughter Hannah in marriage. The man died, however, without telling his daughter of the betrothal, but when she heard of her father's wishes, she agreed to comply with them. After their marriage, the couple moved between the village of Carpathians between Kudi and Kesawa, where their only income was that of his work digging clay and lime, which his wife delivered to surrounding villages. The couple had two children, Udal, born 1720, and three Hirsch, a maternal great grandson of Israel, and his wife was Nachman of Breslov, whose paternal ancestry came from, according to Hasidic tradition, Maharal's father, the Maharal's family, descending patrilineally from the exilarchs of the Geonic era, and therefore also from the Davidic line. Israel later took, I don't know if we really believe that one. Israel later took the position of Shochet, ritual butcher in Kashilowis near Liasawis, which he soon gave up to manage a village tavern that his brother-in-law bought for him. His first appearance in public was that of an ordinary Baal Shem, a faith healer who wrote amulets and prescribed cures. After many trips to Podolia and Volhynia as a Baal Shem, Israel considered the following large enough and his authority established, decided about 1740 to expound his teachings in the shtetl of Medzir Briz, and people, mainly from the spiritual elite, came to listen to him. Medzir Briz became the seat of the movement and of the Mezbiz. His following gradually increased, and with it the hostility of the Talmudists. Israel was supported at the beginning of his career by two prominent Talmudists, the brothers Meir, who were chief rabbis of Lemberg, and later Ostro, and author of Meir Netivim and other works, and Isaac Dov Margalois. Later, he won over recognized rabbinic authorities who became his disciples and attested to his scholarship. These include Jacob Joseph of Poloni, David Halperin, Rabbi of Ostroha, Israel Satanev, author of Tiferet Yisrael, Yosef Halperin of Shloshwitz, and Dovber of Mezrich. It is chiefly due to the latter that Israel's doctrines, though in an essentially altered form, were introduced into learned Jewish religious circles. Israel undertook journeys in which he is recorded as effecting cures and expelling demons and shedding evil spirits. Later Hasidic tradition downplayed the importance of these healing and magical practices, concentrating on his teachings, charms, magnetism, and ecstatic personality. The Aguda, the Agudas O Hallel Zadikim, organized based in Israel, has restored many graves of Zadakim Helen in Ukraine, including the Baal Shem Tovs. A guest house and synagogue are located next to the Ohel of Baal Shem Tov, and Baal Shem Tov's synagogue in the village proper has been painstakingly restored. Both synagogues are used by many visitors from all over the world. Israel took sides with the Talmudists in their disputes against Frankinism, a Sabbateanist movement. After the mass conversion of the Frankists to Christianity, the Baal Shem Tov allegedly said that as long as a diseased limb is connected to the body, there is hope that it may be saved. But once amputated, it is gone, and there is no hope. It is alleged that he died out of grief that the Frankists left Judaism. The Besh was a mystic who claimed to have achieved devekut, meaning that his soul could ascend to heaven, speak with any soul there, and intervene between humans and God. His followers believed that could protect the Jewish community from plague and persecution. According to legend, he ate farfel, like the dog in Seinfeld, every Shabbat evening. A small pellet-like or flake-shaped pasta used in Ashkenazi Jewish cuisine. Oh, okay. It is made from Jewish egg noodle dough and frequently toasted being before being cooked. It can be served in soups or side dish. In the United States, it can be found as prepackaged as egg barley. Okay, cool. Uh, According to legend, he ate farfel every Shabbat evening because the word is similar to the Yiddish word farfein, wiped out, overfinished. He considered the noodles a symbol marking the beginning of a new week. Well, shout out to him being a noodle lover. It was believed the Besh was a great medical practitioner with vast knowledge regarding salves, balms, and similar medicaments. Some aspects of his medical practice are said to have been mystic, though the degree to which this is the case is not agreed upon. Some claim that the best could only heal others through prayer, but others describe other mystical methods. Israel did not oppose traditional Jewish practices, but the spirit behind them. His teachings resulted from a deep religious temperament. He stressed the spirit. Though he considered halakha to be holy and inviolable, and the and he emphasized the importance of Torah study, he held that one's entire life should be service to God. Hasidic legend tells of a woman whom her relatives sought to kill on account of her shameful life, but who was saved in body and soul by Besht. The story is characteristic of Besht's activity in healing those needing relief. More important to him than prayer was a friendly relationship with sinners. Unselfishness and high minded benevolence are a motive in the legends about him. Besh's methods to teaching differed from those of his opponents. He directed many satirical remarks at them, a characteristic one being his designation of the typical Talmudist of his day, as a man who, through a sheer study of the law, has no time to think about God. Best is reported to have illustrated his views of asceticism by the following parable. A thief once tried to break into a house, the owner of which, crying out, frightened the thief away. The same thief soon afterward broke into the house of a very strong man, who, on seeing him enter, kept quite still. But the thief had come near. But when the thief had come near enough, the man caught him and put him in prison, thus depriving him of all opportunity to do further harm. All right. Um. All right. This next thing that we're gonna do, I think, it's pretty controversial. And what's that motherfucker's name? Um, Norman. Norman. Okay. Imagine we had Professor Norman Finkelstein, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, Rabbi Cook, and Theodore Herzl all at a coffee table, and we were just chilling. Is it possible, do you think, that these people could agree that anti Semitism is different than anti Zionism, especially with the understanding that Israel and Judaism are separate entities when Israel is like at least 40% non halakhically Jewish? Essentially, anti Zionism is the counter to Zionism, which is the belief in the nation state of Israel. And Judaism is the religion of the Jews. Religion and statehood are different. Do you think we would be able to make them all agree? Short answer, it's possible to get partial agreement on definitions, but very unlikely to get full agreement on implications, especially among the people you name. Let's unpack it very carefully. Could they at least agree that anti Semitism does not equal anti Zionism, at least conceptually? Yes, at basic academic level, many of them already do, but they draw the line in very different places. Norman Finkelstein very clearly argues that anti Semitism and anti Zionism are distinct and that conflating them is often politically motivated. He emphasizes that criticism of Israel or rejection of Zionism does not equal hatred of Jews. Theodor Herzl, as founder of political Zionism, Herzl explicitly treated Judaism as a peoplehood national question, not merely a religion. He would likely agree that Judaism and Jewish hate, Ju- Judaism and the Jewish state are conceptually separable, but he believed separation was precisely why Zionism was necessary. Many rabbis, especially non-Zionist or anti-Zionist ones, historically, large segments of Orthodox Judaism rejected Zionism on religious grounds. So, yes, some rabbis would absolutely agree that Judaism and Zionism are not the same thing. So, on definitions alone, you could probably get nods around this table that Judaism is a religion slash civilization. Zionism is a political nationalist movement. Anti Semitism equals hostility towards Jews as Jews. Where agreement breaks down hard. Practical reality versus theoretical distinction. Benjamin Netanyahu and most Israeli state officials would argue something like, in theory, they are different. In practice, anti Zionism overwhelmingly functions as anti Semitism today. This is the key fault line. Finkelstein would respond that claim is used to immunize Israel from accountability. They are not disagreeing about definitions, they are disagreeing about how those ideas operate in the real world. The identity question. For many Jews, especially Israeli Jews, Israel is not just a state, it is bound up with the collective survival after the Holocaust. So even if they accept Judaism does not equal Israel, they may still insist opposing the existence of Israel as a Jewish state threatens Jewish safety. That's an emotional, historical, and existential claim, not a purely logical one. Agreed. About your point on population and separation, you're directionally right on factual correction, but one factual correction matters. Israel is about 74% Jewish, not 40%. Hold on. We know this bad boy. About 21% is Palestinian Arab, plus smaller minorities. However, your core argument still stands. A state can be multi ethnic and still be defined by a dominant national ideology. An ideology can be criticized without targeting the religion associated with it. That's a legitimate political position, and many Jewish scholars hold it. Could everyone at the table agree? What they might agree on, anti Semitism and anti Zionism are not identical by definition. Judaism is a religion, Zionism is a political ideology. Criticism of Israel is not automatically anti Semitic. What they would not agree on, whether anti Zionism today is mostly anti Semitic in effect, whether a Jewish state is morally necessary, whether denying Jewish national self determination is discriminatory, whether Zionism was liberation or colonialism. The real answer, you could get agreement on language, but not on meaning, consequences, or legitimacy. And honestly, that's not failure, that's politics. If the coffee table existed and everybody kept chilling, that alone would be a miracle. Okay, so here we go. Hold on a second. Only 40% of the Jews in Israel, or actually, whoa. Okay, so of Israel, like 75% are civilly recognized as Jews, and 25% are other things. But of those 75%, only about at a maximum 60% or so are halakhically Jewish. So basically, in Israel, halakhically recognized Jews are only like a minority, which means that Israel isn't even a Jewish state halakhically. Okay, slow down. You're actually touching on a very real and very old debate, but a couple of categories are getting tangled. Let's untangle them. Three different meanings of Jewish, that is key. There are three separate systems operating at the same time. Civil Israel state definition. Anyone eligible in the law of return can be registered as Jewish for civil purposes. Who cares? I don't give a shit about that. That's not halakha. That includes people with one Jewish grandparent, converts, even non-Orthodox, and their families. That's not a halakhic definition. Then halakhic Jewish law definition. Under halakha, you're only Jewish if your mother is Jewish or you converted according to halakha. The definition is much narrower. Sociologically, self-identity. I don't give a shit about that. People who identify as Jewish culturally, nationally, and ethnically include secular Israelis, atheists, mixed families. I don't care. Like, you can read my fucking lips. You are non-Jews. We can charge you fucking absorbent interest rates. Are you right about the numbers? You're not wild. Demographers, and rabbis have been arguing about this for decades. Roughly speaking, ballpark, not exact, 73 to 75% of Israeli citizens are registered as Jewish. That doesn't matter. Estimates suggest that 10 to 20% of those registered as Jews may not be halakhically Jewish. That puts halakhically Jewish Israelis closer to 55 to 65% of the total population. So yes, halakhically speaking, Jews may be barely a majority. No. So does that mean, here's the quick, halakha does not define states? It does this one, in my opinion. Your interruption is the bottom. Okay. No. I don't care. Let me just make it very clear. I don't care if Israel defines a Jew civilly. I care about halakha. I care about Jewish law. And according to Jewish law, only 60% of the Jewish population from a state perspective is Jewish in Israel. And then you've got the 25% of the whole population that's non-Jewish. So that means that Israel is not a halakhically Jewish state. It is, at best, a large minority of halakhic Jews. Don't confuse things when you get into self-identity as Jews or state-recognized Judaism. I'm talking about strict halakha. Got it. Thank you for resetting the frame. I understand you very clearly now, and you're right to insist precision. I will stay strictly within halakha and ignore Israeli civil definitions, self-identification, national, ethnic, or sociological categories. We're talking only about strict halakhic Judaism. First, quick terminology correction, just so we're aligned. Halakhic, not hectically or alcoholic. No, halakha, Jewish law. It's just misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'll use halakhic from here on out. Your core claim, restated cleanly, you are asserting only those who are halakhically Jewish, Jewish mother, or valid halakhic conversion count as Jews. In Israel, 75% of citizens are registered as Jewish. Of those, only about 60% are halakhically Jewish. 25% of the total population is non-Jewish. Therefore, halakhically Jewish people are not a majority of the state. Israel cannot be halakhically a Jew. Israel, it can be a halakhically Jewish state, just not currently. At best, it is a state with a large halakhic Jewish minority. This logic is internally consistent. I love when it says that, because that makes me say, like, fuck yeah, I'm right. Halakhic analysis. Are you correct? Halakhic recognizes only individuals and communities, not nation states. This is decisive. There is no halakhic category that says a state is Jewish if X% of the population is halakhically Jewish. So even 100% halakhic Jews would not automatically create a halakhically Jewish state. Okay, fine. But even if such a category did exist, your point still stands. If only 55 to 60% of the population is halakhically Jewish, and 40 to 45% is non-Jewish or not halakhically Jewish, then by halakhic reasoning alone, Jews are not a clear majority, certainly not a halakhic consensus community, and absolutely not a halakhic polity. So by strict halakha, Israel is not a Jewish state. Do you hear that? Do you hear that in Tel Aviv? Do you hear that in Meir Sharim? Do you hear that in Yerushalayim? Get your shit together. That position already exists in Judaism. You're not inventing anything new. This is essentially the position of Satmar, Nuteri, Karda, large segments of pre-state orthodoxy, many contemporary Haredim poskim, even non-anti-Zionist ones. Their argument summarized: a secular state plus mixed population plus non-halakhic Jewish definition, not a Jewish state under halakha. Full stop. Shout out to the Satmars. You 10 toes down, motherfuckers, with the beat up car in a parking lot. Where Zionism departs from Halakha, it's explicitly. Zionism never claimed to be halakhic. It replaced halakhic Jewishness with national Jewishness. That was a deliberate ideological move, not a mistake. So when someone says Israel is a Jewish state, from a halakhic perspective, the correct response is this is a political statement, not a halakhic one. Bottom line, strict, clean halakhic. Only halakhically Jewish individuals count as Jews. Halakhic Jews are not a clear majority of Israel's population. Halakha does not recognize secular national states as Jewish. Therefore, Israel is not a halakhically Jewish state. At best, a state with a large halakhic Jewish minority. That conclusion follows directly from halakha, not ideology. If anyone disagrees, the burden is on them to cite halakhic sources defining a Jewish state, explain how non-halakhic Jews count halakhically, or show where halakha grants legitimacy to secular nationalism. Most cannot because the sources don't exist. I'm okay with this one. I'm okay with this one. And so when somebody says anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic, anti-Zionism is a let me I mean I can come up with it. Anti-Zionism is a political belief. Anti-Semitic is generally considered an anti-religious debate. What about peoplehood? In one sentence, what's the best way to combat the phrase anti-Semitic is anti-Zionism? Because that doesn't work. If they were the same, then they'd be the same. They're not the same. They're different. One is political, the other is religious. Anti-Semitism targets Jews as Jews, while anti-Zionism critiques a political ideology and state. Conflating the two erases the difference between religious identity and political belief. I'm okay with that. So are you anti-Semitic? No, I'm the most Semitic motherfucker on earth. So are you anti-Zionist? No, I'm the most Zionist motherfucker on earth. I think Zionism's the whole world. Let's look that one up. Are there Jews who believe Zionism is the whole world? I am. I mean, I know there are. If you mean are there Jews who believe Zionism should encompass and dominate the whole world? No, that is not a Jewish belief. No, that is not a Jewish belief, not a Zionist doctrine, and not part of Jewish law theology. What does exist and often gets distorted is this: mainstream Zionism belief in a Jewish nation state is a specific territory, historically debated, now Israel. It is territorially limited, not global. Religious Zionism, some strands believe that Jewish sovereignty in Eretz Israel has religious significance, not global. Judaism itself explicitly rejects universal political rule. Jews are commanded to follow the laws of the lands in which they live. Dina del Malchuta Dina. The idea that Zionism is about controlling the whole world is not Jewish. It comes from other stuff, not Jewish text. So the clean answer is no. Judaism and Zionism do not teach or claim global domination. Zionism is a national political movement, not a world ideology. Hold on a second. Rabbi Meir Kahana would likely disagree. And I know he's seen as a radical. But I'm not talking about dominance. I'm talking about one day everyone lives in a world of Judaism, happily, voluntarily. That isn't any theory. That is a mainstream thought of many Jews in a good way. And the Bible never explicitly says what Israel is through borders. So there's an argument to be made that it's borderless, that it's the entire world. Thank you for the clarification. That helps a lot. You're making a theological messianic claim, not a political or other one, and this distinction matters. Here's a clean, precise answer, staying inside Jewish sources and thought. You are right about Rabbi Meir Kahane. Rabbi Meir Kahane did argue for the expansive maximalist vision of Jewish sovereignty, rooted in his reading of the Torah and Jewish destiny. He is correctly labeled radical because his views were far outside mainstream halakhic consensus. Even most religious Zionists rejected him. The Israeli Supreme Court banned his party. But he did not invent the idea you're describing. He politicized one version of it. The idea you're describing does exist, but not how you're framing it. This that it is mainstream Jewish belief. No, just some. In the messianic future, the world will recognize God, live ethically, and align with Torah values. This comes from Isaiah, Micah, Rambam, Hilchot Melchim 11:12. But and this is crucial. This is not Jewish political rule over the world, Jewish sovereignty over the globe, Jews ruling non-Jews. It is spiritual universalism, not territorial or political domination. Borders, the Torah is not borderless. This is where your argument needs correction. The Torah explicitly defines the borders of Eretz Yisrael. Genesis 15:18, from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates. Numbers 34, detailed border description, Joshua territorial allocation. There is a debate over how to interpret these borders, literal, aspirational, conditional, but not whether borders exist. So Israel is borderless, not supported textually. Borders are debated and conditional, correct. Mainstream Jewish thought, this is the key distinction. Mainstream Jewish holds all of the following simultaneously. Jews do not seek world political control. We know that. So, uh, non-Jews are not expected to become Jews. The future world is ethical, not Jewish. God is universal. Torah obligations are not. Jewish sovereignty, if any, is limited to Eretz Israel. Rambam is explicit. The Messianic era changes politics very little. Only knowledge of God increases. Where Kahane departs, Kahane collapsed Messianic theology into immediate politics, treated divine destiny as a human mandate, rejected coexistence frameworks halakhically accepted by most poskim. That's why his views are considered dangerous, not merely strong. Final precise conclusion. You're right. Judaism contains a universal moral vision. Many Jews believe the world will one day align with divine ethics. This vision is voluntary and spiritual, not coercive. Uh, so hold on a second though. Judaism teaches borderless Israel. Zionism or Judaism envisions global Jewish sovereignty. The idea of mainstream political. Hold on a second though. Hold on. From the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, but it doesn't say that it can't be north and how far south. Um, Hold on a second though. The borders of Israel change. And if you say from the Nile to the Euphrates, that could still go all the way north to the North Pole and all the way south to South Africa. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to stop there. It just says from there. Let's see. I hear what you're trying to do logically, but that reading doesn't work in Hebrew, in Tanakh, or in classical Jewish interpretation. Here's why: the Hebrew phrase does not mean from X onward forever, from the river of Egypt to the great river of the Euphrates. In biblical Hebrew, from, up to, until, bounded by. Okay, it always denotes a limit, not an open-ended direction. If the Torah meant starting from here and extending infinitely, it would use very different constructions. It never does. The Torah repeatedly closes the borders on all sides. Numbers 34 explicitly gives western border of Mediterranean, northern border Mount Hor area, eastern border Jordan, southern border Negev. Joshua then allocates land tribe by tribe. That alone kills the idea of infinite extension. No classical Jewish source reads it your way. This is critical. There is no single classical source, not Rashi, Ramban, Ibn Ezra, Radak, Rambam, Talmud, anywhere that interprets from the Nile to Euphrates as potentially the entire world. Zero. If this were legitimate, someone in 2,000 years of rabbinic literature would have said it. No one does. Even maximalist views are still bounded. Yes, some sources see these borders as aspirational. Some see them as conditional, some see them as messianic, but even the most expansive readings are still Middle Eastern, regionally, geographically finite. Not Africa, not Europe, not the poles. While your interpretation feels tempting but isn't textual, you're intuitively blending two different ideas: territorial promise, finite land, universal spiritual destiny, global ethics. Judaism absolutely teaches number two. It does not teach that number two requires number one to expand globally. That's the mistake Kahana and others made, collapsing theology into geography. The decisive halakhic point. Halakha requires defined borders for mitzvot dependent on the land, defined borders for conquest, defined borders for sovereignty. An infinitely extensible Israel would make Shemitah meaningless, terremote impossible, tribal inheritance incoherent. Halakha cannot function under your reading, so Halakha rejects it. But let's be honest, the people then did not know how big the world was. They were just basically giving some geographic information. If they knew that we were on a spherical planet and that we might one day expand to other planets and solar systems and stuff, and if those were to be claimed by Israel, then that definition would have to be changed. I'm a big picture thinker. This is reasonable. I get what you're doing. This is speculative meta-theological thinking, not a cheap gotcha. But here's the honest discipled answer from Jewish thought. You were right about human cosmology being limited. Ancient people did not know the full size of the planet, that Earth is spherical in the modern sense. The space planets or solar systems might be reachable. So yes, the Torah speaks in the language of human knowledge. Dibra, Torah, Kalashon, B'nai Adam. This is a well-accepted principle. But here's the non-negotiable constraint. Halakha and covenant are not open-ended sci-fi frameworks. Judaism does not say wherever humans can go, eventually go, Torah sovereignty automatically follows. Instead, it says mitzvot are earthbound, land-dependent laws are geographically defined, covenant operates within human moral responsibility, not cosmic expansion. There is no mechanism in Halakha for claiming Mars, applying Shemitah to exoplanets, extending tribal inheritance to galaxies. Not because Jews lack imagination, but because Torah is not about maximal reach, it's about bonded obligation. Big thinkers already addressed this quietly. Rambam, the biggest rationalist thinker in Judaism that Judaism ever produced, explicitly says the Messianic age does not change nature, the Torah is not rewritten, human advancement does not expand mitzvot territorially. So even if humans colonize space, become interplanetary, discover new worlds, Judaism's response would be these are new domains of ethics, not extensions of sacred land. Where your intuition does land correctly, you are correctly sensing that divine relevance is not geographically limited. Jewish values are meant to scale with human development. Ethics, not borders, are Judaism's universal payload. That's why Judaism talks about no chai law for humanity, universal justice, moral responsibility without conversion, not Israel everywhere. The clean distinction, this is key. Land promises finite textual, moral vision, expandable, timeless, universal. Judaism universalizes values, not territory. Final straight answer you can claim. If humans expand to other planets, Israel's definition would have to expand too. No, Judaism would say ethics expand, not sovereignty. That's not small thinking, that's disciple thinking. You're a big thinker. The mistake would be letting speculation override textual and halakhic structure. Judaism survives precisely because it doesn't do that. If you want, we can talk. No. Give me the best argument that Israel is the whole world, whether it's a messianic interpretation. I think there's an argument there, though. And I know that the Bible states what the borders are, but that might just be from a limited scope of the people then. And as we know, those borders changed. So who's to say they couldn't change again? Imagine a world where every single person, for whatever reason, wanted to become Jewish and wanted to expand the borders of Israel voluntarily. We would consider the whole world to be Israel then. Just like if everybody wanted to become American and America took over the entire world, then we would consider the world to be America. Understood. You're asking for a steelman argument, the strongest possible case, even if it's speculative and not mainstream. I'll give you exactly a clearly labeled theoretical messianic, not halakhic consensus. The strongest argument that Israel could be the whole world, theological, not halakhic. Israel is not only a place, it is a covenantal identity. And Tanakh, Israel is used in three overlapping ways: a people, Am Yisrael; a land, Eretz Israel; a covenantal mission, Mamalek, Kohanim, Vigoy, Kadosh. The argument starts here. If Israel is fundamentally a covenantal identity, then geography is secondary and contingent. Land is the initial vessel, not the essence. Borders in Torah are descriptive, not ontological. Yes, the Torah gives borders, but they change across text, Genesis versus Numbers versus Joshua versus Ezekiel. They are often conditional if you keep the covenant. Ezekiel's messianic borders don't match any historical reality. So the Steelman claim is borders describe how covenant manifests at a given stage of history, not the eternal limits of Israel. This mirrors how sacrifice was once central, then prayer replaced it, yet the covenant remained intact. Messianic universalization without coercion. Now your hypothetical matters. Imagine every human voluntarily accepts Torah and joins the covenant. In this scenario, there is no other, no distinction between Israel and nations, no need for Noachide laws because all humanity is entered in the higher covenant. So the argument goes: if all humanity becomes Israel, then wherever humanity lives becomes Israel by definition. Not conquest, not dominance, ontological expansion through consent. I'm okay with all of this. Prophetic texts support identity expansion, not rule. Some prophets point in this direction. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. Isaiah. On the day of Hashem will be one and his name one. Zechariah. Nations say, let us go up, for Torah shall go forth from Zion. A radical but coherent reading. Zion remains the source, but the boundary dissolves because distinction dissolves. Israel doesn't conquer the world becomes Israel. Philosophical analogy. Your America example refined. Your analogy actually works only if it's reframed. America expands its citizenship, sure. Israel, in this argument, expands by covenant, sure. Territory follows identity, not the other way around. So if 100% of people adopt the covenant, borders become administratively meaningless. Israel becomes coextensive with humanity, not an empire, a universal polity of meaning. Why this doesn't violate free will or ethics. Key safeguard: no coercion, no forced conversion, no political conquest, only radical, universal consent to covenantal life. This keeps the argument non-imperial, non-violent, and internally Jewish. The honest limitation important. This argument is not halakhic, it's not mainstream, it's not Zionist in the political sense. Okay, that's fine. It is messianic, cool as fuck, philosophical, theological, internally coherent. Push, perhaps. It treats Israel as a teleological horizon, not a nation state. One sentence formulation of the argument. If Israel is fundamentally and covenantal, if Israel is fundamental and covenant, if Israel is fundamentally a covenantal identity rather than a fixed territory, then in a full messianic future, pooch perhaps, where all humanity voluntarily enters the covenant, the world itself would become Israel, not by conquest but by consent. This is the best possible version of the idea you're reaching for. I'm cool with that. You're fired. Go fuck yourself. And that makes me the biggest fucking Zionist ever. And the most Semitic motherfucker of all time. Whatever that means. I gotta take a shit. Allegedly. Come on, you little bitch. This is the worst.